Have you ever trusted someone with your whole heart, only to be shattered by their betrayal? What if the person who smiled the most hid the deepest deception? In a quiet mountain village, a young man's heartbreak led him to a lesson from a wise old monk, one that would change the way he saw people forever. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village tucked away deep within the embrace of lush green mountains, there lived a wise and compassionate Buddhist monk named Venero. His name was known far beyond the borders of the village. People admired him not only for his profound knowledge, but also for the warmth in his heart and the calm that radiated from his presence. He had devoted his life to helping others find peace, guiding them through the turbulence of life with gentle teachings rooted in ancient wisdom. Day after day, people from all walks of life traveled great distances, crossing rivers, scaling hills, and enduring long journeys just to meet him. They came seeking guidance, clarity, or simply the comfort of his serene company. His small monastery, perched on a hill above the village, had become a beacon of light for those lost in darkness. One sunny morning, as the village awakened to the sounds of birdsong and temple bells, a young man named Kiran arrived at the monastery. His steps were slow, his shoulders slightly slumped. Though the sun lit up the world around him, his face carried the weight of a storm within. Kiran was known to be kind and sincere, the kind of person who always saw the good in others. But life had just dealt him a painful blow. He had trusted a friend deeply, believing in their loyalty, leaning on their words, and that very friend had betrayed him in a way he could never have imagined. The pain of that betrayal left him disillusioned, wounded, and questioning his own ability to judge people. With his heart heavy and spirit broken, Kiran stepped into the peaceful garden of the monastery. The scent of blooming jasmine hung in the air, and wind chimes whispered softly in the breeze. There, under the shade of an old Bodhi tree, sat Venero in quiet meditation. Sensing Kiran's pain even before a word was spoken, the monk opened his eyes and offered a warm, knowing smile. "Come," he said gently, motioning for the young man to sit beside him. Kiran sat down, his eyes brimming with unshed tears, and then, unable to hold it in any longer, he began to speak. He told Venero everything, from the trust he had placed in his friend to the lies he uncovered and the deep sense of betrayal that followed. As the words poured out, so did his tears, streaking silently down his cheeks. Venero listened quietly, not interrupting, not judging. His calm presence made Kiran feel heard in a way he hadn't felt in days. When the young man finished, the monk took a deep breath and spoke softly. "Kiran, my dear friend, the path of life is filled with both joy and sorrow. Along the way, we will meet all kinds of people. Not everyone we meet is sincere, but there are ways to see through the illusion." Kiran looked up, his eyes searching for meaning in the monk's words. "To recognize those who are fake," Venero continued, "you must first develop clarity within yourself. True vision comes from inner awareness. Just as a tree reveals its nature by the fruit it bears, so too does a person reveal their character through their actions, not merely their words or appearances." The young man nodded slowly, taking in every word with the focus of someone who truly needed answers. Sensing his openness, Venero leaned closer and said, "Let me share with you a story, a parable of two travelers and the lesson they discovered deep within a forest. Perhaps it will help you see what the eyes alone often miss." As Kiran sat in silence, Venero's story echoed in his heart, like ripples spreading across a still pond. He began to reflect deeply. Perhaps the signs had always been there, hidden between the lines of casual conversations, in the small moments where words and actions no longer aligned. Slowly, Kieran realized that he had ignored the very clues that could have warned him of his friend's true nature. The wise monk, watching Kieran's thoughtful expression, gently placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Don't be too hard on yourself. The ability to recognize those who wear false masks is not something we are born with. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be cultivated with patience, attention, and time." He encouraged Kieran to begin observing people more carefully, not just what they say, but how they behave when things don't go their way. "Pay attention," Venero advised, "to how consistently they show integrity, how they treat others who cannot benefit them, and whether their kindness holds steady even during difficult times. These are the fingerprints of sincerity." Kieran nodded, feeling something shift inside him. A renewed sense of hope quietly replaced his earlier sorrow. He was no longer a victim of betrayal, but a student of life. What had once been a painful wound was slowly becoming a source of insight, a lesson he could carry forward. As the days passed, Kieran found himself drawn more and more to the monastery. With each visit, he asked deeper questions and listened with greater intention. He didn't just want to heal, he wanted to grow. Venero, seeing his dedication, shared more teachings and practical ways to sharpen his inner discernment. They practiced silent observation, reflection, and mindfulness. The young man embraced the path with humility and curiosity. Weeks turned into months, and something remarkable began to happen. Kieran changed, not loudly, but quietly, profoundly. He became more grounded, more discerning. His ability to notice the subtle red flags in people's behavior sharpened like a blade honed on stone. He learned to trust his intuition and to honor the quiet voice inside that often speaks before logic can catch up. Those around him began to notice too. The villagers saw a quiet strength emerging from Kieran, a clarity in his eyes that hadn't been there before. He no longer stumbled into traps laid by those with hidden motives. Instead, he began to gently guide others who had faced similar heartbreak, offering the same patience and wisdom he had once received. Then, on a golden afternoon lit by the soft glow of late sun, Kieran returned to the monastery, not as the lost young man he once was, but as someone transformed. With a peaceful smile and eyes full of gratitude, he bowed before Venero and said, "Venerable monk, your guidance has changed the course of my life. I've learned to see beyond appearances. Today, I am surrounded by genuine friends who bring joy and honesty into my life." Venero's eyes sparkled with quiet pride. He replied, "Kieran, my dear friend, remember this. The ability to recognize falsehood is not the end. It is only the beginning. The real treasure lies not in judging others, but in developing your own qualities of truthfulness, compassion, and kindness. When you live with integrity, you become a light, and light naturally draws other lights toward it." Kieran bowed deeply, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment and humility. He knew this was not an ending, but a new beginning. From that day forward, he committed himself to sharing the teachings he had received, spreading the seeds of wisdom, and helping others walk the path of discernment. And so, the story of Kieran and the wise monk Venero echoed beyond the village hills, passed down through generations as a timeless tale of healing, self-awareness, and true connection. People everywhere found hope in their story, learning that even after betrayal, it is possible to grow, to forgive, and to live surrounded by authentic hearts. Kieran's transformation had not gone unnoticed. As we saw earlier, his journey from pain to clarity had become a living example of what true discernment and inner growth could look like. But the impact of his and Venero's wisdom didn't end there. It was only the beginning of something much bigger. Word began to spread far beyond the mountain village. The teachings of Venero, once whispered among the temple walls, now echoed across the land. In nearby towns, distant hamlets, and even remote farming communities, people spoke of the monk who taught others how to see clearly through the masks people wear. Soon, men and women, young and old, began arriving at the monastery gates, some with doubts, some carrying old wounds, others simply curious. They came on foot, by ox cart, or in quiet caravans, drawn not by spectacle, but by sincerity. All sought the same thing: guidance on how to recognize deceit, protect their hearts, and build lives surrounded by genuine connections. With his usual calm and open heart, Venero welcomed them all. He didn't judge their pasts, nor promise quick answers. Instead, he offered the same patient wisdom he had shared with Kieran, inviting each person to look inward, to become more aware of their thoughts, their instincts, and the behaviors of those around them. Kieran, now walking steadily on the path of discernment, helped too. He spoke humbly of his own mistakes and growth, reminding others that being fooled once didn't make them weak. It made them human. What mattered was what they chose to do next. And so the monastery became not just a place of solitude, but a center of learning and quiet awakening. Conversations filled the courtyards, stories were exchanged under the shade of the Bodhi tree, and hearts began to heal. At the core of all Venero's teachings was a simple truth. If you want to recognize fake people, you must first recognize yourself. Be aware. Be observant. Watch how people act, especially when things don't go their way. Are they consistent? Are they kind when no one is watching? Do their words match their behavior? These subtle clues reveal more than loud declarations ever could. Fake people, Venero taught, often hide behind charm or politeness, using friendliness as a mask. But their intentions eventually show in small acts of selfishness, in patterns of manipulation, or in moments when loyalty is tested. In contrast, genuine people reveal themselves through compassion, through selfless acts, and through their steadiness even in stormy times. They don't need to pretend, because who they are inside is the same as who they show to the world. And perhaps the most powerful message of all: the more we embody honesty, kindness, and integrity ourselves, the more we begin to attract people who reflect those same values. We no longer chase validation, we quietly build connection. The story of Venero and Kieran reminds us that wisdom is not just for monks or mystics, it's for anyone willing to look deeply, to grow from pain, and to walk the path of authenticity. And so their story lives on, not just as a tale, but as a reminder to all of us. If you felt something shift within you while listening, consider sharing this message. Subscribe to Buddhism Seeds for more timeless teachings, like this video if it resonated with your heart, and leave a thoughtful comment below. We'd love to hear your story.